It's probably 6 days until my retirement because it's Feature Please, a hateful voyage to the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
And I am what happens when power leveling goes wrong, Peter.
Peter, what are we making reference to?
Well, I want to talk about a wedding.
Oh, you want to talk about a wedding? Okay.
I went to a wedding. It's been, I think, years since I've gone to a wedding.
Oh my.
And at this wedding, somehow, some stranger at the table and I started talking about Star Trek.
Of course you did. How can you not?
I was
Spend
sober
so much time every week talking about it.
And specifically Delta Flyers came up and he got real excited and we were talking about Delta Flyers and he's like, I couldn't take it though, man. Garrett Wang is miserable. And I'm like, yes.
So you met a semi-rando at a wedding and you connected on how much you hated Delta Flyers?
Yeah, and I'm like, obviously I got to name, swing my nerd cred around and be like, well, as a late 30s white male, I have a podcast and mine is about Star Trek Voyager. And there isn't anything possibly out there on the internet that should be more pertinent to our interest than Delta Flyer. And it's just, we both had to tap out.
It's difficult to describe how bad that show really had to be for both of us to make independent decisions that we could not listen to it anymore. And that is with 50% of the personnel on that an act of joy to listen to.
Absolutely. Robert Duncan McNeil is the fucking
Robbie's stuff was always really interesting. Some of the cringe, the social, concern cringe aside, but that kind of actually fell off as they got deeper into the show and that kind of, those plot lines kind of went away.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, had he not talked as much about like the Native American stuff, he wouldn't have talked about Resident Alien as much as he did, which I ended up watching because of that podcast and really, really enjoying. And I suggest anybody out there looking for a good TV show, check that one out. But our conversations drifted off Delta Flyer and we started talking New Trek. And it was very rewarding to have someone sit there and pull down their pants and poop right over the face of Picard.
Man, you got full catharsis at this wedding.
Oh my God. Like, I was like, okay, cool. You and I aren't just weirdos with terrible minority opinions. Like seeing other people out there, talk. Like the first season of Discovery was okay, but then the later stuff, blah blah blah. Both really enjoyed Lower Decks, which we still kind of need to catch up. Have you gotten any deeper into those yet?
I stopped around episode 4 of season 2, although I did see the clip apparently where the Lower Deck writers ripped off beat for beat a joke that Red Letter Media did and actually made it part of a plot line.
Which one?
Red Letter Media did a bit about how ridiculous the technobabble is on Discovery, and the exact joke they were doing in their video got used on Lower Decks, like the thing that they were making up that would be ridiculous to solve the plot, they did on Lower Decks and then used the same catchphrases that's in the joke. So I mean, it's 100% clear they're like, oh, we're going to take the piss on Discovery by doing this joke in our show, which
Good.
Like they did more of that this season already that I've seen, of where they're just kind of taking the needle and just kind of pricking Kurtzman with it here and there.
Well, as the best property out of New Trek, you have that right. Good. Well, finish watching Lower Decks. Maybe we could use that as some Patreon content to finish out our conversation on season 2. But I would say this is a good time for us to have a conversation right now. As a big chunk of our listener base is abroad outside the U.S., and streaming game is a much different creature out there.
Ooh, yeah, I heard about this.
I'm aware that changes to trying to move all of the Trek property under the Paramount Plus umbrella have resulted in a lot of Star Trek that was previously available through Netflix. I think Discovery specifically has evaporated, and I know, I can't say for our listenership, I haven't seen anybody talk about it, but some of these other rancid Star Trek groups I'm on, I've seen a lot of belly aching, and I have to say, congratulations. You have been rewarded with a richer life having the poop stain that Discovery is taken away from you so you can no longer harm yourself with
As I
it.
say, this is an act of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Don't watch Discovery. But yeah, the the contours of this is interesting. So what ended up happening is they really want to put all of the Trek they can within their streaming aegis because they know it will drive a lot of attention. It will drive a lot of potential subscriptions. Problem is, some of these shows are locked into different long-term deals with other platforms. They have to be unwound. So, for example, we can't watch Voyager on Netflix anymore, but it's still on Amazon
For
uh,
now.
for now. Next Gen and Next Gen DS9 are still on Netflix because those were particularly popular, and they did special contracts for them years ago. Uh, but for New Trek, for Discovery, what they always did, because Netflix was partially funding, at least at first, Discovery, because they wanted the show to launch because of how popular Trek was on their platform, is that was the international rights holder for streaming for Discovery since it launched back in, I think, 2017. Because there wasn't CBS All Access everywhere else in the world. So the only place you could watch it if you were not in the United States was Netflix. In fact, that's how I originally watched it, because I was literally in Japan watching Netflix, like, because you get a lot of time on trains there when you're traveling from city to city, and I watched the first few episodes on Netflix while physically actually in Japan. So that ended right as season 4 was about to launch, apparently. The Netflix decided they didn't want it anymore. And CBS wants to put it on the new Paramount Plus, but Paramount Plus has the same issue that CBS All Access does, which is it's only in the fucking United States, which means you literally cannot watch Discovery internationally legally right now.
And that's the way it should be. That should be a
Yeah,
crime to
listen, it's like you can allow us to keep that confined to our borders. We're the sin eater. We are watching Discovery so you don't have to. That's what we're doing as a society. We're giving back to the world.
It's about time.
We owe them some things. America has foisted a number of pop culture blunders on the rest of the planet. We have David Hasselhoffs that we have to account for one way or another.
Leave Hasselhoff alone. I'm trying to pivot here, Joe. Speaking of, would you say foisting?
All right, yeah.
Speaking of blunders undertaken by the United States, Season 7, Episode 21, the pre-Starfleet Friendship one.
This episode is going to be dominated by a single fact, Peter. One that we have teased a number of times and talked about, and we have finally arrived. This episode has the most ham-handed, blunt force, red shirt moment in the history of Star Trek ever. I don't know how else to describe what transpires here.
This episode goes back in time to the 60s or 70s, whenever it was, goes onto the set of original series right when some rocks or a trash bag is about to attack a guy in a red shirt and said, "Hold my beer."
This is so... it is comical how they approach what is supposed to be the high stakes of this episode. And it is to the credit momentarily of Memory Alpha
in a rare showing
to actually have some content on this. So what are we referring to? We are referring to the fact that the special guest star of this episode is none other than Joe Carey. Now, do you remember who Joe Carey is? Because he hasn't been in an episode that has occurred in the actual timeline of Voyager since literal season fucking 1, State of Flux, which was the episode when Seska got found out. He's appeared a couple other times, but it was in Relativity, which is a time travel episode when he was hitting on 7 of 9 when they were still in Stardock.
Like you do.
And Fury, which was the Kess comeback episode where he only appeared in the in the time frame that occurred in season 1. So while he has appeared in the show since season 1, his appearances have all occurred during or before season 1 within the timeline, right?
I was convinced that his death was going to take place in some sort of a flashback because it's been so long since we've seen him for real. So him actually being alive and well in this was pretty astounding. So this is written by Mike Taylor, Brian Fuller, directed by Mike Veiger. First aired April 25th, 2001. Go back to the Memory Alpha. Lay this quote on us so we can lay the groundwork.
I'd be happy to. So this was Kenneth Biller, who was reflecting on their desire to kill a recurring character in this episode. And they considered some other options, which we'll talk about, but said the following. If you haven't seen someone in forever, and all of a sudden you get to learn a lot about who he is, the savvy audience member will say, you know, this dude's gonna die by the end of Act 3. He may as well have had a bullseye tattooed on his ass because he's as good as gone. Like, they knew what the problem was. And instead of trying to do anything about it, they just leaned in at full force. That, you know, he had his retirement party, like they went full Murtaugh. Like, you know, he's bought his home. He's 6 days from his retirement. It's just, this guy was destined to die in this episode from the moment you see him.
I love Kenneth Biller, and we give him a lot of shit. But I mean, some of the best Trek or Voyager out there is laid squarely at his feet. And a quote like that, speaking that candidly in Memory Alpha, I think paints a great picture of him. I really love this episode. I think that this does some Star Trek stuff, the likes of which we really haven't seen on Voyager yet. I thought the scope of the plot was grand, yet fitting. And yeah, the parts with Carey, like, as soon as you see him in this, and had this been Peter in 2001, not 39-year-old Peter doing a grueling micro examination of Voyager at a cellular level, would I have seen the painting, the writing on the wall that Carey was going to die then? I don't know. Now, absolutely. And the entire time I'm watching this, like, my asshole's just puckered, feeling terrible for this guy. Like, I like Joe Carey. He's a dad. He's got 3 kids. You know, this dude wants to get home and see his family. He was willing, back with the Skeevians, to give them the illegal database footage so they could get the warp folding technology, right? Like,
Yeah.
You want to talk about friendship one, like, he crossed the aisle and came and shook the hands of the fucking Maquis and was like, yes, let's subvert crazy
He did
Janeway.
that dirt with Seska, if I recall correctly.
Absolutely, yeah. I wish we would have gotten more of Carey prior to this. And it's, you know, it's a similar complaint across the board. It's funny that they mention a reoccurring character. There are so little reoccurring characters in Voyager, and that's ridiculous because it's the same fucking cat. Like, you have such a limited scope of people you can interact with, and on a ship that you're sealed in for a 7-year journey home, like, the number of times we actually get like a Vork or a Celeste or a Chell. I could have gone for more of this guy. Sadly, the Bucks can stop here.
So let's unpack that a little bit more. We're going to top load this with a bunch of Joe Carey talk, and then we're going to actually talk about the episode, because the Joe Carey shit is definitely the most V'ger please moment of season 7, as far as I'm concerned. The most just ridiculous, ham-handed nonsense. They mention in the quote from Biller that they had thought about doing Tal Celis, who was the hapless Bajoran from the Lois Dex episode, played by the D&D wizard, Vorik, and then Samantha Wildman. So these, I guess, are what you would call recurring characters on Voyager. Of the three, you and I were talking before we started. I thought Tal Sellis is a brilliant idea, as far as her being just like this plucky go getter who's kind of hapless and very innocent, and would have raised the stakes of the villainy of the main bad guy here, I think, considerably.
You don't kill your 90s hotties.
Okay, true. They are in short supply.
Take everything you just said, go after Samantha Wildman now, because she is a safe, warm, kind character that the crew has a lot of investment in, because it is the only child on board's mother. So that's like super dirty. And if you're going to really vilify the whatever, the scrotum face.
Well, I will say with the scrotum face alien mom there as well, that adds an element of additional texture to the villainy. If you had executed Samantha Wildman, herself a mother, like maybe after a scene where she like bonds with the mom that's there,
Yeah.
is like helping Tom with the medical issues
And
of a
reveals
pregnancy.
to the radiation victim mom that like leader guy is off his fucking rocker and needs to go,
Yeah.
and just gun that guy down in the back and say, enough.
You know what would have really done it though is if instead of one of these, what should have happened is that the away team should have been all four of them, and you don't know which one of them might get it. Instead of having a main character down there,
Mm-hmm.
you send like, oh hey, we'll send a couple engineers and a scientist, and we'll they'll go get the probe and come back, and they're the ones that get captured, and all the main characters try to help get the recurring characters back, and ultimately the one of them doesn't make it, and you add a little bit more suspense. Like, you kind of know one of them's going to die because they're the recurring characters, they're expendable, but it's
Yeah.
not immediately obvious which one it is, right? Because like
And that would have been easy.
Tom could have easily been just Samantha Wildman in terms of the dialogue. Tal Sellis could have done the Neelix bit, and then that leaves you with Vorik and Joe Carey to sort of be the straight men in this situation.
I agree 100%. I will say though that Tom's role in this was very juicy and well deserved. It's been a while since Tom hasn't been it's rare in Voyager for Tom to be compassionate and just and just your typical what you would expect out of a Starfleet character, right?
Yeah, it's definitely one of his more Starfleet moments.
And he was certainly due for that. But I really feel what you're laying down as far as replacing them. I think that had this happen earlier in the season, maybe that might have been a bigger possibility. But putting a B-roll cast heavy episode this late in the season, like switching over to Delta Flyers, they're all like, yeah, the best episodes are one that focuses on the main characters, who cares about the side characters, blah 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 blah. I'm guessing that's a culture that was pervasive through the entire Voyager operation. That's why we didn't really get as much interaction with reoccurring characters as we should have, again, for an
Yeah,
environment.
that's an interesting point, because DS9 was the exact opposite. So it could very well be that some of the actors from DS9 had a bit of a chapped asshole over the fact that they often had to split time with part-timers that would get like whole episodes to themselves, and so they were very protective of their screen time and the attention, and they're basically the CV they were building as actors, instead of not wanting to have to buy in all of these extra people that would come in for 10 or 12 or 16 episodes like they did on the show that was being produced at the same time as them for most of the run.
Again, I love this episode. Everything you just talked about, I think, could have really taken it to another level and dumbed down some of the silliness and what happens with Joe Carey to build something a little bit more tense.
All right, 20 minutes in, we got it out. The Joe Carey shit is ridiculous. We have solved several better ways of doing it. But let's actually talk about the episode now, because like you said, it's pretty good. It's a good Trek premise. We start with a teaser scene that tells you a lot with while telling you very little, which is probably the best kind. Where you have this alien civilization. We know it's alien because they have a little bit of shit on their forehead. And they are detecting what we can clearly make out to be a Earth probe because it's speaking English. It's uh, playing the Four Seasons on a space broadcast bandwidth.
It's looking real Zephram Cochrane-y.
Yeah, and also like Nomad, which was a original Trek episodes, kind of have this sort of like boxy kind of feel to it. It looks like a piece of old Earth tech. They did a good job with the CG of making it look like this is some shit that got put out there in the real early days of Earth spaceflight. And when we cut back to Voyager after the teaser, we're actually right where we left off as far as their plot is concerned, which is they're FaceTiming with the Federation. They're having a discussion. Specifically, it's Janeway talking to someone she identifies as Professor Hendricks, who is actually Admiral Hendricks, and is regaling him with stories of all of the alien races that they've encountered. And we join the mid-conversation as she explains the Jurassic Park people.
The fucking dino people, man. I was so excited to hear that name. That crazy shit that Voyager's gotten into, like, yeah, we uncovered an entire conspiracy that unraveled the very fabric of their society, and for whatever reason, they didn't crush us like bugs, but they did, like, murder the one dude and threaten the other guy's family or something. Yeah, those crazy dinosaur people. That's a thing.
The dinosaur people, I think, definitely have the award for most powerful race encountered in all of Voyager. Far and away. Like, they had city-sized starships. They could just beam Voyager into their cargo hold. They could travel a transwarp. They basically were an ascended species. They were just above everything.
We're putting them above species 8472.
I think so.
I mean, those are guys that could just bingo cubes. In case you didn't know about that.
But then they got jabronied by Voyager's, fucking weekend-long science project. Like, how cool are they in the end?
Who doesn't get shithoused by 5 minutes worth of the old college try by Voyager?
The Dino people didn't. They told them to fuck off and then left.
I don't think they ever really stepped, though. I don't know. So yeah, he's real interested in what she's got to say, but this isn't a leisure call. This is a business call. And my ears instantly perked up because I've been waiting now, for 7 years. Voyager has been a ship that's only order has been to get home, with the one exception of the Omega particle, where there is a standing order issued by Starfleet that directly interacted with the crew's decision-making process there. But now, for the first time, there is a problem, and there is a Starfleet asset in the area, and Starfleet has said, chill out for a minute. I don't know if you know what these things look like, but these are called orders, and we've got some for you.
They're pretty excited. Like, Voyager's like, holy shit, we have a mission from Starfleet Command.
How novel. Wow.
This is kind of neat, right? Like, our bosses gave us shit to do.
I was excited for them,
Yeah. They were like, you could tell through the episode, like, Harry Kim like stayed up overnight to like do extra space math to try and like be more efficient.
So they rip him for it. And it's like, listen, he's like, well, if this bitch Janeway is never going to give me a shot at promotion, maybe I just need to like wow somebody over her head. My mind's just swimming with possibilities here. Like, if Starfleet was to like chill out for a minute and say, you know what, maybe we don't need Voyager coming. Like, we can do. This is an asset, right? Like, they're in a bad position, but ultimately this is an asset. Hey, we've got some stuff we need you to do for the next 2 or 3 years, and then we'll resume the trip home. You've been making really good time anyway, so we're not sweating it. I don't know, go catalog this solar system, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think the space reasonable thing is exactly this sort of thing, which is, hey, you're in the neighborhood, can you check this out for us? Like, if that sort of situation comes out. Otherwise, it's like, okay, yeah, you guys have been out there for a while. Get the fuck back here as quickly as you can.
We
Well,
need that Borg tech.
yeah, you've got some shit hot nonsense on that craft, and we would love to get our hands on it. And I'm not just talking about this Imperious blonde Borg drone you picked up, but
Yo, we want to taste that Leola root.
Neelix has got the good.
Hey, bring that vibrating rock turd dead caretaker. We need to cut that bitch open. So here's the order. Is once upon a time, Earth did a real moops.
a serious moops. This is some very naive about the universe shit right here.
We sent out the Friendship 1 probe, which everybody seems to have a pretty fond impression of, if we are to believe the reactions that we get in the senior conference. Harry Kim has memorized the message that Friendship 1 broadcasts, which is basically, hey, everybody, we want to be friends. We're going to start doing space travel. Here's a bunch of information about us. Here's how radio works. Here's all of this technology so we can meet on equal footing and as a showing of goodwill, and just all sorts of stuff that flies directly in the face of that prime directive we're always talking about.
Not just flies in the face of the prime directive, but is painfully naive of the nature of the universe being much more brutal than the optimistic Earthlings would like to think it is, which, by the way, is essentially the thesis statement of the show we're about to watch. Enterprise is actually pretty good at portraying the universe as a harsh and untamed place that is unkind. And that has an effect on the optimism of the crew as time goes on.
So as they're describing this in the staff meeting, I'm sitting there as a Star Trek veteran, and I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, this thing was a terrible idea. How was this not like priority number one once Starfleet was finally founded, to track this goddamn thing down and blow it up before it did exactly what we'll come to find out it did? Like, this is a worst case scenario.
I presume it probably got too far out relative to their ability to go get it once they realized what a mistake they made. Because they sent it out just a few years after Zephyr Cochrane's flight. So it's got like probably a Warp 1 engine in it or something like that.
Yeah. So, if we had some Australians here, maybe we could get some grueling.
This is the time. I mean, I desperately would like to have Terrans just all of a sudden doing a galaxy brain math to tell us exactly how far it could have gotten within 200 years. In fact, I am almost certain that he will do this math for us in the V'ger Please Trauma Support Group, and we'll all be privileged in the experience.
You're going to subpoena the space math?
Yes, I'm going to subpoena the space math.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say that at Warp 1, a 200-year journey. First of all, what infinite fucking power core does this thing have to get through that? Maybe there's a lot of coasting going on. I'm gonna have to say that either we hit some wormholes here, or the hand of Q has been busy.
I think the canon explanation would be that it would have to be wormholes, because I think you're right. Like, any fuel source that it has, even though a low warp is not energy intensive, obviously as high warp, it's still going to burn out after like 30 or 40 years of consistent use. You'd have to assume, especially at that level of Earth's technological development. Oh, I'm getting my neck beard showing. Bail me out. Get me out of this conversation.
So yeah, anyways, I think it's well within reason that they could have sent something out to go search and destroy the biggest mistake of 2067. But they didn't. So off it goes, and somebody over at Starfleet Intelligence is like, hey, you know, our projections put this thing maybe in this area. And since we've got a cutting edge, top of the line ship out that way, maybe they can swing by and check it out. And like you said, everybody's excited about it. I'm excited for them. Their first mission. Like, how cool, how quaint.
So Harry's math pays off. They find the planet where they think the thing is. And they also detect a whole bunch of antimatter radiation, which apparently does not ring alarm bells for them immediately.
I want to, real quick, before we get into them actually finding the probe, like, clearly they're not going to touch the Maquis angle anymore, but I think it would have been interesting at some level to have some discussion somewhere in the mess hall where the Maquis participants of Voyager, because it's been Voyager as a crew working with the intention, the mission of getting home. Now you have Starfleet actively sending orders and directives, sidetracking Voyager from those efforts to get home. Like, I need that conversation where the Maquis are like, you know, we're not Starfleet. This isn't our mission. And now we're basically being pressed into service. How do we feel about that?
I think you would like, once we're finished, to listen to the Voyager Season 8 podcast. He's a fan of ours, actually, as well. And he explores these concepts in detail in basically creating audio drama versions of what he thinks should happen after the finale that kind of dives into these ideas, these specific ideas, in ways that felt very much like a fan who understood the contours of the show would create. So that is my recommendation to you, and my
That's
recommendation to everyone else, by the way.
that's no fun, Joe. It's so easy to make compelling, reasonable, good Star Trek Voyager plots and
Yeah,
developments. I mean, we
we
do
do
it
it
all the
off the
time.
cuff every week.
I want to see some ham-handed, goofy shit writing and how it would handle these concepts. You can't cheat and give me a
It's easy to be
podcast.
competent. It takes skill to be a hack fraud. It takes skill to be a hack fraud.
Oh boy. Um. Anyways, yeah, they find the planet. Shit's all fucked up. They. I'm
Oh,
such a beaten dog at this point. I don't even like stop to question why they're not just transporting through. I assume if they're sending the fucking Delta Flyer down, there's dust in the clouds or something that prevents transporters or some other bullshit, whatever.
I mean,
And
they did say that the antimatter radiation was interfering with sensors and transporters.
but before they get in that shuttle, they're getting their radiation inoculations, and there they are in sick bay, and there he is sitting on the table, good old Joe Carey, and I go, uh-oh.
Oh no, buddy.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, 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 no.
Why are you here, Joe? This is it. This is it. Danger. Danger, Joe Carey. B'Elanna comes down. She wants to go on the way team mission. Tom's like, no, we already got Joe. Joe's like waving from behind with a smile on his face, not seeing that anvil floating over his head. And finally, um, B'Elanna relents, saving both her life and the Jesus Christ Klingon growing within her.
When they called Josh Clark, the actor who plays Joe Carey, what do you think they told him? Like, hey man,
Hey man, you want to come die?
I know we haven't called you in a while, but we're finishing up season 7, and we just want to kill you. And he's like, cool, SAG pay. I love it. Like, give me
I
that
love it.
scale, man.
I
Like,
got
there
fitted
was
for that
no
uniform for a reason.
you know, I've stayed close enough to my original weight. I should still fit in the same jumpsuit. You know, like I'm in the
B'Elanna,
neighborhood.
B'Elanna and her arguing. The initial reason that Tom doesn't want her going down is because she's pregnant and she's going to be breathing radiation air for 2. Like, it felt like it was a whole conversation of B'Elanna basically saying she wants to smoke cigarettes, and Tom like, no. The Surgeon General said that's unhealthy.
I do think that sets up a little bit of the subplot here, which is the family and birth and children and caring for children and protectiveness of fathers. that they want to set the table for by having this fight.
Yeah,
That's
and
what it was for.
it's a jelly bean trail that I was all over. I'll tell you that. Like
Yeah, that was made for you. Like
you've
that.
played the
That's it.
father card a few times. Like I felt it for real in this one. Um, they get down there, they go, oh, wait a minute, I thought there was nothing here. And then they find like massive swaths of highly irradiated city. They land,
I
they get
love that.
out.
I love how Joe Carey said that line. He goes like, I think he literally said, I thought it was supposed to be uninhabited." Like with the in there kind of contemptually.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck is this?
And just as his mind was blown, my mind was blown when I saw not two, but three.
Three EV suits.
Where did this third EV suit comes from? These suits, these nice high quality suits, these are here courtesy of Star Trek First Contact, where they used movie budget to make movie grade prop suits, costumes. We've only ever gotten to see two people in spacesuits at a time, and it's always team one of two people and team two of two people. 4 spacesuits, it's only 2 spacesuits. I don't know where this third one came from. I don't know how fucking Memory Alpha doesn't mention this at all, but this is like ground shaking news.
The third one did seem like it was cheaper though. I looked carefully after they had 3 of them on screen at the same time, and one of them seemed to have like less plastic doohickeys on it and seemed a little less fully developed.
I
And I don't think that was accidental.
I didn't notice that because I was obsessed with poor Ethan Phillips, because they got Neelix in a spacesuit, and I'm like, this dude is saddled with all his bullshit Talaxian makeup, and then under a fucking spacesuit, this guy's got plastic on plastic on plastic. Neelix's face is so big in that thing, like his cheekbones are pressing into the glass on the helmet, and it just looks like fucking miserable.
It was definitely the most uncomfortable time that man has ever had on set, depending on how good or bad the that Ferengi makeup ended up going for him.
True that. So I'm still kind of like curious how exactly Starfleet would have known that Friendship 1 was anywhere near this area, but they start digging around the city. They
Okay,
find
hold on. I just found something out. Critical EV suit information, because I was curious because you mentioned it. They made 3.
Who made 3? First Contact?
They originally made 3 for First Contact.
Was one of which like an evil prototype that tried to kill somebody, so it got taken apart and put in a shelf, never to be seen again until being discovered by its long lost brothers years later?
There's even a photograph of all 3 of them being used in the filming of First Contact.
There's been so many times Memory Alpha has specifically cited 2 suits.
There's 3. There's photographic evidence of 3.
Well, listen, Balana Torres, I got fucking news for you. You can manipulate pictures with Photoshop. I think this is a conspiracy. This is a real Voyager conspiracy, all right?
Yeah.
Not that nonsense 7 and 9 was getting on to.
I'm just, I could just be gaslighting you. You never know.
You're salty that you didn't play your little trick where you tried to describe a mediocre episode that doesn't exist. So now you're trying
to convince you it actually existed.
Trying to juke me on the fucking third Phantom suit.
I'm just not okay with you being named the Chadish of our fandom. I need to displace you somehow.
You won't. You're in, what was Barge of the Dead? What's the shitty hell?
I'm going to Klingon shitty hell, where I have to keep doing my backstory episode over and over and over again.
You didn't even get the honor of a Klingon shitty hell. It just, after you fucked up that Susie Plaxton comment, the demon parasite just came and ate your fucking soul, and you're being slowly digested for the next millennial.
Does he look like my dad?
A fat version of your dad in an ill-fitted
no.
animal suit.
That's not okay.
That's how you can tell a demon. That's how you can tell a Delta Quadrant demon. It looks like your dad, but like a lot more chest hair and a especially ill-fitted admiral suit.
But anyway, they find some irradiated cities, right?
They find the irradiated cities, and they find the biggest, the mother of all Chekhov's guns, the field of nuclear antimatter intercontinental ballistic missiles. And they assume, well, clearly this is a warlike society. There is a badass map painting field of nukes ready to go. Obviously, this is just another civilization that bombed itself into oblivion. Sad face.
It is a nice kind of initial head fake of like, oh, the issue is that the stupid thing that earlier Earth civilization did was give this technology to a planet they use it for war. How tragic. Because that takes away most of the culpability of the Federation, right? Like, oh, we shouldn't have done it, but they did it to themselves still.
Kinda.
I like that that's where the starting point is, and that they kind of give you this clear tease as a reason for why this happened.
Mm-hmm.
The
They split into two crews.
The away team of man who is about to die plus Neelix plus Tom go into the caves, the hell caves. You mentioned last week you were expecting to see them, and you were not disappointed.
No.
And they go into someone's fucking Fallout 4 shelter.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought too. I'm like, they are just raiding through the DC wasteland here. They're poking around. They're collecting some bottle caps. They're trying to get some materials so they can make. I'm blanking on my Fallout 4 quotes here.
Well, okay, so there's Fallout 3 was the capital wasteland. Fallout 4 is Boston.
Right.
And so if they're in Fallout 3, if they're in the capital wasteland, then they're trying to get parts for that sweet flaming sword that you make out of junk. That's like one of the better melee weapons until
I
you
forgot
get
about that.
the
That was a
super
good one.
duper OP stuff later in the game. By the way, Fallout 3 was so horrifically broken by its last X pack, it's kind of ridiculous. If you ever like play the game again and then you just go immediately do the last X pack missions that are like the alien spacecraft.
Oh yeah,
And you
Mothership Zeta.
yeah, and you just like come back with ray guns and you're just like one shotting every enemy in the game from that
Yeah,
point
it's
forever and ever.
ridiculous. Take that, Death Claws.
But if it's Fallout 4, if they're in Fallout 4, then they're probably on some sort of like loyalty mission for one of the factions, and they might just end up with a couple power cores from their power suits.
That kind of tracks. There is definitely some loyalty missions that get accomplished here. They don't result in enhanced love interest sex scenes, but Tom seals the deal with some cohorts. They're rooting around this little tech hovel camp, and they find the side panel of the Friendship One. They say, "Well, we found this thing." Points off that for being on the cusp of such a big fucking deal, piece of history, blah blah blah. Chakotay, who was like completely tent pulling his pants with the huge history boner he had back in that awful shitty episode.
Oh, right, the one where they're like trying to get the probe, and Seven of Nine has to like bail everyone out of their stupid decision making.
Like, this should be on par with the big fucking deal that was with him, and you would never have thought he gave two shits about it throughout this entire thing. They're rooting around in the junk, and then they hear some rustling, and the bandits come out.
So they have some trash bags on that were reminiscent of the 37 trash bags to me.
I was getting more sand people.
It was like a loose fitting version of that, because those were straight up gimp suits in the 37s, and these were a little bit more layered, trashy ponchos, but it had a similar design aesthetic of just kind of plain black plastic.
What's the Metro 20?
Oh, Metro 2033. I thought of that too.
Metro or Chernobylite. I mean, there's a little bit of a Soviet post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, these guys could have easily been going from metro station to metro station, buying and selling products with good AK-47 ammunition.
The currency of the future. You're right.
And by the way, if you've never played these games or read those books, highly recommend it. Metro Last Light is an amazing game in particular. We're doing a lot of video game recommendations today. I don't know why that is.
It's par for the course with us, man. um, so they get jumped, and there's a little bit of a scuffle. Meanwhile, you've got Harry and Chakotay going back to the flyer, and Chakotay finds that someone has been trying to hotwire his whip, and is like, what the fuck? And then we cut to the back cargo area where Harry Kim's putting his helmet away, and he gets jumped and his ass beat with a rolling door.
Only for Chakotay to show up in the first of several different effective uses of a phaser.
Mm-hmm.
Just guns
Blast
him
that
down real
fool.
quick.
They tried to make contact with Tom's team, but that's a no-go. And all of a sudden, the entire Delta Flyer starts getting rocked with antimatter weaponry. And Chakotay says, well, we're out of here. And then fucking Kim's like, but what about the other guys? And it's like, come on, man. This is why you're not cut out for fucking command.
Hey,
This
remember
right
that
here,
episode with Ron Glass? Remember that? Shut
yeah.
the fuck up, Harry.
Yeah, why don't we sit here, a sitting target, and just get blown up with fucking dirty nuke bombs? Like, this is why you're never getting another pip on that collar. So they fly back off to Voyager.
Chakotay literally says, we can't rescue anyone if we're dead. Like, Harry, what the fuck?
Yeah, let me show you how we do terrorist math, okay?
So they finally reveal the aliens, and these are some very pus stricken toxic Avenger looking motherfuckers. Right?
They look like shriveled scrotums. Their faces look like hell. It's very clearly radiation poisoning. It's awful. You've seen something similar to this if you go back to the Malon episodes, where you're dealing with bad space radiation. They've got the main group sequestered. We get the evil leader guy. I don't remember what his name is, but whatever, doesn't matter. You know exactly what this guy is going to be about. And eventually we get the story of what actually happened to this planet.
And it is not that they nuked themselves, as was teased. Those missiles, as noted, were developed for defense and were never fired. It is that the power grid, the antimatter power grid, exploded. And when it did, it created this radiation mess. And it is the stowaway that clocked Harry that is the one that really gives the download. And his name was Otrin. And he classifies himself as a scientist. And he says, this was your design, obviously, you evil Federation. You sent this device to us and told us to use the technology knowing that we would kill ourselves with it because we weren't going to be prepared for it. We didn't know what the fuck antimatter was until this nonsense wandered into our neighborhood and told us about it and told us to use it. We didn't know better.
To clarify, the antimatter power grid you're talking about did not exist prior to Friendship One. This was Earth technology that was offered to anybody with a radio. And this is always this is a great episode for many reasons, specifically why, one of which is specifically why the Prime Directive needs to exist, because you're giving revolvers to monkeys and sometimes they shoot themselves with the bullets. And there's a lot of shades of candy corn tragedy here, right?
Yeah. Unstable power source.
An unstable power source that blows the entire goddamn planet up, and those people who were not lucky enough to die in the initial blast are now stuck in this post-apocalyptic hellhole, living underground and getting so fucked up by the radiation poisoning that they end up looking like phage guy. What's their name?
Oh, the doctor's girlfriend?
No, just the phage dudes. I'm blanking on the.
Oh, the Vidians.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are on par with being as ugly as the goddamn Vidians are. And I love the the conspiracy theory there that you just laid out. If we go back to the sad sacks, speaking of a mediocre episode that never gets discussed, right? You had those space Amish guys that just started appearing on Voyager at random. Oh, we don't know why we're here. And it just keeps happening more and more and more until finally the sad sacks outnumber the Federation. And while the sad sacks are teleporting in, Voyager members are transporting out. And it's a smooth transition to take over something. It's that same type of Trojan horse here. They think that the Earth sent out this malicious Wikipedia of how to fuck your shit up. And then they fuck their shit up, and then they just waltz in their radiation-proof suits.
The way that he goes through you showed up with protection from the thing we did to ourselves, like, just randomly, really.
And you know what? There was another episode specifically that dealt with this, and it was it Rise? It was where they were shooting asteroids at the planet so people would flee.
Was that the subplot of Rise? All I remember about Rise was the elevator ride. Was that like the space dilemma that was happening? I forget.
There was a conspiracy that the asteroids that were hitting the planet had like nuclear depth charges attached, and they were doing way more damage. And it was a specific attack to make it look like intergalactic phenomenon was attacking a planet. The residents would leave, but the invasive force would then move in behind and occupy.
That's right. God. And you know what? You could be gaslighting me though. You could turn that around. And I forget everything not related to the most dramatic science fiction elevator ride of all time.
The one that established Tuvok as an unstoppable Terminator, even though he totally
or Spider-Man, yeah.
That too. Listen, for a minute there, the Vulcans were the top of the food chain. So it's one of those crazy theories that once you say it, makes perfect sense, and it kind of trips the Voyager crew up for a second. They're like, that makes sense, but no. And I have to think at a certain level, like maybe somebody somewhere in there is like, this sounds real Section 31. Like, hold on, is the Earth flat?
Are we the baddies? Did we do that?
But they're like, no, that you guys, you just suck at space math. You did this to yourself. It sucks, but hey, we'll help you out, right?
With the bad guy down on the surface, Neelix tries to like work some charm, buddy up to the main villain and
the leader guy.
Be like, hey, I know humans suck, but they're not so bad, and my planet also got wasted by a fucking atomic weapon, and these jabronis wouldn't even help me save them.
He starts talking about the fucking Meteoron Cascade or whatever, and my fucking cackle started getting up. I'm like, don't you start talking about the inaugural weakest shit award.
That's that's on our bingo card. Remember, like, you always mentioning this? Somewhere someone hit bingo because of this.
It's impossible not to, but it's front and center here. But this dude, he cuts through Neelix's bullshit. He's like, I bet you they didn't even try to save these people for like, they probably didn't even put a solid 10 minutes of work in, did they? And Neelix is like, no, my family's damned forever to a miserable half-life. And he's like, get the fuck out of here. You've got a solid effort by everybody in the crew here. Carey's all fucked up. He's got a concussion. He needs medical attention. They won't let Tom get his backpack. Tom is befriending a clearly pregnant woman, trying to chat her up on her kids. How many boys? How many girls? I got a daughter on the way, blah, blah, blah. I might not have seen the Joe Carey death coming, but I certainly knew that there were going to be some stillborns here to kind of like put Tom in his place and add real gravity to the situation for him.
Yeah, the way that they had the extra here, the Ascended extra, talk about it, you knew that was going to be the answer. And Tom wasn't seeing it at first, like that was going to be the answer. She was real fucking kind of despondent over it. And lays down like, I don't have any live children. Never had a live child before.
I
And
also
that definitely put Tom into like, oh, this is some fucked up shit.
this is also maybe part of why I really like this are the number of parallels that exist between this planet and their situation and the Krogan from Mass Effect. Because not only do you have whatever the Krogan's homeworld is called, a nuclear wasteland, but also God, what was that? The
Tachanka. Tachankas.
Tachanka, right? But what was the thing the Solarians infected them with so that they couldn't reproduce anymore?
Hey, Stevie. What's the name of the disease that the Solarians gave to the Krogan?
Good. If she doesn't remember it off the top of her head, then I don't feel so bad.
Yeah. Are we all blanked, man? I know. I mean,
Good. I hope it's hurting her as bad as it's hurting me.
yeah, I think it's hurting us all. I also forget the name of it. I mean, she literally has a doll of both playable Krogans and
Take them and
the
smash
Solarian
them on the
doctor.
edge of the table
The
and say
Solar
she does not deserve these.
the Solarian doctor. What was his name?
Morden.
Morton. So she's looking up like an art book.
She's not even willing to go into just Wikipedia and rip
No,
the
she's
up.
like got a physical book out. This is an
You have to
intense search.
justify the purchase and the shelf space for just this specific. I want to say it's the phage, but it's not the phage. That was the Vidian.
But yeah, that was the Vidian thing. I thought of that too, as the phage, but that's the
God damn it!
Vidian.
I'm gonna fucking cheat here.
No, it's just I want this for Stevie so bad.
Genophage. That's why I thought it was the phage.
Ah, it's the genophage.
Minus 40 points for everybody involved.
Oh, that was rough. That was rough.
I'm ashamed of myself.
I wanted to say phage,
you know
but
what? If Iowa wants me to remember things, they should make good things.
In my defense, I have not heard that word in some time. I think I played through Mass Effect 2. I played through Mass Effect 2 at the beginning of the pandemic, like literal March of 2020. So it's been about a year and a half since I've heard that word at all.
So, you've got a extremely resource scarce society. You've got crippling radiation, deforming people, nuclear winter, hopelessness, all the bad stuff wrapped into one. It's not surprising that none of the other marauding Delta Quadrant species haven't come down to fuck with this place because it sucks ass down here. And now that this dude has the enemy, leader guy has the enemy of his civilization held hostage, he goes, you motherfuckers are gonna pay. And he's not really looking for just revenge here, and I'll credit leader guy with this, right? He is not petty and just looking to go down swinging like Admiral Kane.
He's just ruthless.
He says, you're gonna find us a new fucking planet and you are going to transport all of us off this hellhole that you're responsible for and give us a fresh start somewhere else. Which, legit, right?
It's a fair demand, and when Janeway ultimately refuses because of the logistical impossibility, that's when things escalate. And they do a good job of, like, Janeway's negotiating, he's pushing back. Janeway's like, how about this? Let's start with something small. Give me one of them back. I'll give you, like, medical supplies. Let's establish trust. Standard sort of, like, hostage negotiation tactics that you see in fiction all the time. I don't know how well this plays in real life. It's obviously never been a hostage negotiator, but it made sense to me. And you think you're going to have that moment of, like, just for a second of, like, okay, I'll beam someone back. But then the music starts. The motherfucker is about to die here, and everything, like, takes its time, where, like,
Mr. Carey, I'm sorry. Well, sorry for what?
Yeah, like, he's setting up the transporter things, like, everything is taking a little too much time. The dramatic music in the background.
And it's a good fake out. I mean, yeah, they bring this guy out of the fucking closet specifically to kill him, but when he's got the head injury and you're like, all right, well, you can go up first. I was like, maybe Carrie doesn't die here. I mean, this all seems pretty reasonable what's happening.
When the music starts, and suddenly everything is holding on Carey for like 2 extra seconds longer than it probably should, while the music swells. It's like this guy is about to die music right here.
I felt his death. We have talked about Carey a lot. He is established person in the realm of our knowledge. I know he has 3 children. I feel for him on that. I'm instantly having to ask myself, like, did this guy even get a chance to phone home, or was his like ice linear chip pull like way at the back? And everybody that was in front of him is gonna have to feel like shit that he never got a chance to talk to his kids.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That
like
all that time they spent on that stupid law case, Doc. Look what you caused.
ooh, you feel good now, Doctor, with your
Mm-hmm.
fucking shitty book you wrote about everybody? Yeah, they kill him, and I was like, you mother, like that's shitty. Janeway is completely off her fucking rocker on this one, and this is another one of those episodes where you just get Janeway with some defects here. This is the most prevalent example of humanity fucking up, uh, and it being laid at Janeway's feet. The last time you had something on par with this was Dreadnought, right? Where you had the fucking Maquis super weapon that was about to blow up some helpless civilization or
Yeah,
whatever,
but
right?
she was willing to destroy the ship to save them. Like she was willing to like pay the ultimate price, and it wasn't her fuck up. Although I did like when the villain accuses her of genocide. She's got this look on her face of shock, and it's like I really would have loved it if she had said, "Are you one of Arcturus's people?" Like are you one of the board's victims or
I've fucked
something?
over so many people. Like, I don't know if you guys can get next door through all this radiation, but like, hasn't been a good run for us over here. I mean, this is like a book should be written about this in Starfleet, like why we have the Prime Directive. Everything we can do to fix the problems that we have caused here should be expended. And I feel like from a diplomatic angle, like right off the cuff, she should have been like, hey, we're super sorry. Let's start beaming down all sorts of shit to help you guys out. Let me really roll out the red carpet. Let's really fully discuss all the opportunities here. Like they scout out, like, and I get, we don't deal with terrorists or whatever, but read the fucking room here.
I feel
And
like there was some potential that could happen.
and this is really my major criticism with the episode is you have a planet full of refugees, want to be refugees, at a serious medical disadvantage. They search and they say the closest M-class planet is what, 3 months away?
3 months away, yes.
And
They'd have to
I'm
do 15 trips.
let me pose this opportunity here, right? And we could sit here and do the space math, but I'm going to dump this on Taryn as well if he wants to do.
Subpoena the space math.
I subpoena you to do some calendar, some stardate math, because if I go back several pages in my notes, I get to a little two-parter we can call workforce, where you've got a super advanced fucking civilization, spacefaring civilization that's so fucking hard up for labor, they're abducting them off of ships with their advanced medical technology that can rewrite people's memories. Hey, how about this? Take one load of these guys back there. They can say, hey, listen, we've got a whole fucking planet of people that would love to work in your factory instead of eating fucking rad roaches and still birthing all over the place. Why don't you send a rescue effort there to pick us up and we'll go work in the fucking power plant and everybody could live happily ever after. And hey, Voyager, all your gallivanting around the fucking Delta Quadrant, look at these cool connect the dot plots we can do where our past experiences pay off and
We can even
diplomacy.
rewrite your memory so you don't remember having to survive
Yeah.
Fallout 3.
You know what?
Like all those stillbirths gone.
No, it's just this one. That's all. Hey, everybody, just eternal spotlight of the fucking sunshine, but whatever, What a great no, Jamie. That we can't tack 3 years onto our fucking You've just cheated decades off. Fucking Kess gave you like a space boop that knocked what 10 years off or something, 20 years.
Yeah.
I think you've gotten enough goodwill and free rides that you could take 3 years to undo the fucking literal nuclear holocaust that Earth has inflicted on these poor fucking people.
But if Janeway had done that, then we would not have gotten the next scene, which is the rescue scene. Because what they set up is that there's going to be some sort of commando insertion, and it's Chakotay and Tuvok and some security people. They land. They're running their op, and it looks like Tuvok gets captured by one of the aliens and is brought back into headquarters. And that's when you find out that whoever this alien is that took Tuvok in is like in on the raid, and you suddenly get the most effective gunning down of an entire room of people since Tuvok turned his omnidirectional phaser on 6 seasons ago. And they just bam, 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 bam. Both of whoever this alien is and Tuvok like neck pinches one, shoots 2 of them. Very like everyone's down.
What kind of man could be such a ruthless gunslinger as to gun down an entire room?
Zero hesitation and perfect accuracy. One might even say machine-like accuracy. That's right. Pulls the thing off, and it's the fucking doctor. And I just about lost it. I'm like, oh, Peter's gonna love this. This is everything he wanted right here.
I loved it. That murderous fucking rogue AI hologram just gunning everyone down. Love it. They bring him in the most dangerous, heinous things that someone under the Hippocratic Oath should never go anywhere near, and he never disappoints. He really, I mean, you haven't seen a room full of motherfuckers get cleared out of that since Lon Suter. All right. Speaking of the doctor, because I'm not willing to let the Joe Carey thing go just yet. He gets shot. He transports up, and then the doctor's like, he's dead, and I'm like, I know that
post death revival techniques.
I know that fucking raised dead is not on cooldown. Bring Joe back. This is well within, if not standard Federation necromancy, then the fucking nanoprobes. Bring him back with.
He doesn't have any reagents. He didn't buy any reagents at the town before they went to the instance.
Whatever. They got nanoprobes on tap. They could have brought him back with a crisis of faith. They did Joe dirty.
They did. Right. Yeah. There's the straining of credulity in those moments was our complaint. Like, because this is what happens is that if you create plots where your characters fix death, then the ultimate dramatic tension of someone dies is no longer available to you. And so it doesn't make sense that Joe Carey's just dead. You've been shown to be able to fix this.
You brought Neelix back a week after he died with the help of 7 of 9, who is in sick bay where the Federation hologram who knows necromancy is. Joe Carey was killed mid-transport to sickbay. It's like optimal conditions. So exactly what you said. You've crossed these lines, which are fine and dandy plot points in that self-contained episode, but it's not a self-contained episode. That is part of the tapestry of Voyager now, and it makes that silly. But the other end of silly, yeah, the EMH just fucking gunning everybody down in that room. Straight gangster Mac. Completely unexpected. And I was right in the middle of like chuckling and writing shitting things in my notebooks about how Tuvok had got yet again, and this was just Warlord all over again with Tuvok's poor Black Ops security exploits blowing into his face.
You know, they're noping out of the situation, but Tom, before he leaves, kind of has a moment with the mom who he helped deliver the baby for and revived using his med kit. from like a little piece of blue jelly to a
What
much more ambulatory little puppet.
what did you think of that scene of the stillbirth, the baby? I mean, I've seen children that small. Like that certainly was high buy-in for me.
I mean, I think this is a classic example of something that probably has more purchase with a parent. I am not one, so I'm like, I'm cool. I thought it made a lot of sense of like, I got the connection they were going for narratively. You know, Tom's fatherhood is pending. He's going through some maturity as a consequence of that. Like, I'm there. I got it. But I think that it goes next level for someone like you, naturally. Like, you've been in that situation. So, yeah, like, oh, okay. There's stakes here. The emotion's more real because you've felt it.
And it's a legitimate connection now. And the progression of, I don't want to say Stockholm syndrome, but like the bridging and compassion they build for each other was very earned in this episode. This wasn't, a ramrod. Okay, now these guys are friends inexplicably, and we get, huge leaps of faith on both ends. Like this was a good progression. But they go, all right, the baby, we've resuscitated it. This is your first child that's actually stuck. It's got a shot. It is not going to survive. It still needs more help. Show me, good faith. Let us take the baby with us back to Voyager. We're going to get it fixed up, and I'll make sure it comes back to you. And she says, yes, take it.
I really thought that moment was really well done. It's not a lot like said. It's a lot of Tom gets on his knee. He makes the appeal. She is buying into him. Like they've built their relationship a little bit, scene after scene up to this point. And she hands him over, like, a little hesitant. No, this is right. Like, it's just right. It's just right. Like, it could go either way, right? Like they could go too much with it, a little too much emotion, not enough. They just dialed it in perfect.
The connection's there. He's already on his way to becoming a father. This is within his wheelhouse. They didn't just fucking reach into the ether and say, today Tom cares about underwater mining operations and 20,000 leagues under the sea, and tomorrow Tom cares about Fort Knox or Mars operation or fucking Ford F-150s or bubblegum and falling in love with the shuttlecraft.
So, well, since we're already at an hour and 15 minutes, we'll wrap this up. The scientist they saved at the beginning of the episode, they've depussified him and treated his radiation issues. And 7 of 9 made the connection with him of like, you have to be the one that leads the people. You're a scientist. Yeah, you're not a survivalist the same way this guy's in charge now, but your people are going to need something else after we fix this. And they send him down there after they've scienced a way to fix the problem, which involves basically using photon torpedoes to create this effect that will disperse the radiation in the atmosphere.
This requires a lot of cajoling, because once the away team is back, Janeway's like, all right, pull up anchor, fix the kids, send it back, and we're out of here. And it's like Neelix and Paris like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we have really, we got a lot of work we need to do here. And this is my big accusation of like Janeway's crazy / borderline evil. For all the times that she has turned the other cheek, like, it doesn't take a lot of cajoling to get her to finally realize it, but like, this conversation never should have had to happen.
No, they send him down. The leader is still not having any part of negotiating with these folks, even though like he's lost all of his leverage, right? Like he has no hostages anymore. And they send the baby who's been cured and the dude who's been cured, and they're basically saying, all you gotta do is sit back and watch. Voyager's gonna roll through, they're gonna do the thing, they're gonna fix the problem, they're gonna beam down a bunch of medical supplies that I can use to cure everybody, and then we can rebuild. right? Like, it's not like they have any critical thing they have to do. They have to basically not shoot nuclear missiles at Voyager. Like, just don't shoot the
Just
nukes at
do
us.
not Judgment Day the people trying to help us, please.
But of course, the tension on the ground is he wants to Judgment Day them, and the final confrontation is actually the mom pulling the gun on the leader to say, I will do anything to save the life of my child, and if that means acing you right now, I will
ugly motherfucker, you will get it. You will get the business end. This has now become a jailbreak episode, and we need to get out of this fucking shithole, and you are in the way. For as obtuse and just stupid as Janeway is earlier in the episode, while Voyager is in the atmosphere, zooping around, putting itself at great danger, the shields get knocked down to 18% by whatever this catalytic conversion they're doing to the atmosphere is. Again, much like the Mass Effect thing, where like, you know, they're shutting down the air tower that's pumping genophage out. They lock onto her with the nukes, and everybody's like, listen, we need to get out of here. And Janeway's like, no, hold the course. Like, that's the Starfleet captain I needed the entire time, was like, I don't care what these guys do, we're fixing this problem no matter what the cost to us is. That's the critical miss there. But yeah, radiation mom's like, knock it off. I'm gonna fucking kill you if you don't. And the guy goes, okay, I guess I'm gonna knock it off.
Like, all right, you do have a gun. Yeah. I am weak to gun.
Like, everybody's like, hey, raise your hand if you're not tired of this guy's bullshit, and everybody's hand stays down. He's like, oh, scientist guy, are you the leader now? And he's like, yeah, Seven said I'm the leader now, so I guess I am. Here's the other part of the problem for the episode for me is, much like our own podcast where we do so much stuff at the front and then completely rush the ending, that's exactly what Voyager does.
Yep.
This might as well have been a fucking Captain Planet episode where a magic genie shoots out of the ground and turns into a tornado and whooshes all the poison out, and there it goes. Like, the order of events of, we are going to fix this entire fucking planet like that, and there's going to be a military coup, and democracy is going to replace the fucking...
The cute radiation girl's going to come down and say the sun is shining, and everyone's going to come out and see it.
It's such a...
Oh yeah, we're getting to wrap it up.
The biggest crime of this episode is, again, I go back to workforce, which, again, that workforce connection to go back to that planet and give them fucking radiation sick fucking...
I think that's brilliant. That is a brilliant solution. Yeah.
That's fucking dope. If they had pulled that out, I would have fucking taken everything about continuity I ever said about Voyager and shoved it up my fucking ass. Okay? But
that would have been a lot to shove up your ass. Like, have you listened to our show?
Well, I mean,
that's hours of content.
I'm assuming I would be able to use some Vaseline or something. It's certainly not dry.
I'm just saying, you have to work that in slow.
Okay, well.
Oh, and speaking of rushed, and things that are coming out of the asshole, they also rush a conclusion to Joe Carey's story arc.
Well, hold on. Oh, okay, yeah, yes, they do.
So this stupid, so dumb. They don't know what to do, right? Like, they killed Joe Carey, fucking murked him, but they gotta feel like they got something to do with him at the end, right? It's like, alas, Joe Carey, our dear friend, he is dead. They don't know what to do, so what they do is they go get a Star Trek Voyager Christmas ornament, put that bitch in a bottle, put it on a desk in a random quarters set, and they decide to talk about how Joe Carey was building a ship in the bottle of Voyager. And the problem is, the prop looks like the stupid, cheap Christmas ornament that it actually is. That they just, like, took apart a little bit. It does not look like a ship in the bottle. It doesn't look intricate. It doesn't look like something you've put together piece by piece. It looks like a crappy Christmas ornament in a bottle.
It's more of a eulogy than even Lon Suter realistically got. I don't have any problems with the way they close that out. I would have liked there to be some sort of closure, like, it sucks he didn't even get a chance to talk to his kids. What are we going to tell his family? It really sucks that your dad paid the price for some bullshit Earth did back in 2067. Like, wow, what a shitty lottery to win. But it's some sort of closure. Another big complaint I have about this is, again, going back to Workforce. You took a fucking 2-part episode for bullshit Workforce, the love interest that never went anywhere, and then another episode that could have been one. Like, I think the stakes are high enough here that this would have been an appropriate 2-part episode to really do everything the justice I think it could have deserved, including having that large ensemble cast that you mentioned earlier. A nice game of Russian roulette of who's going to fucking buy the farm there. Maybe even kill off multiple of them and really vilify this guy and really give Janeway a reason to have like an axe to grind and be so willing to just fly away from this massive debacle that Earth caused over here. But overall, I loved it. This was a very Star Trek episode. The stakes were huge. They were appropriate. I loved them. Janeway acts a little goofy, but it was a standout episode for Tom, certainly. That phaser fight was the best since the Oregon Trail. What was that? Doesn't matter what it was. It was the best phaser fight we've seen until this one. Harry Kim gets his head slammed in a door. What's not to love?
Truly, it has it all. I largely agree with you. Phaser fight, and it was the Oregon Trail that had the multi-directional phaser, along with probably the most kinetic fight scene in the show ever.
Yeah, until Picard.
Yeah, until the first episode of Picard with Kung Fu Android.
Mm-hmm.
I think I do like the episode as well, but such a dumb, ham-handed nonsense with Joe Carey does drag it down a little bit. Like, you just know he's gonna die so bad, and they could have done so much by being more subtle with what they were attempting to do, probably by having more than one recurring character involved.
I will say, had they put Samantha Wildman in this, she's been in the pressure cooker before with whatever that terrible episode where Phlox and Flotter, Child's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they would have had her in there, you would not have thought she was going to die, and then gunning her down would have really come out of left field and been way less telegraphing than what happens to old Joe here. But this is a very strong one for me, and I loved it. And it's a great connection to the Alpha Quadrant. Neat to see Starfleet handing out directives that actually turn into some pretty... And it's also cool, too, for us to see an episode where Voyager is interacting with a dilemma that they are tied to, but for a change not directly responsible for, right? And that's a lot of next-gen stuff, was Picard having to deal with a difficult situation. He didn't create it, but he doesn't have any option. He has to be the one to resolve it. And a lot of the stuff that Janeway has encountered has been shit they've directly fucked up, and she has direct culpability in.
What are we watching next week, sir?
From here, we're going into... Where did my thing go? Season 7, episode 22, Natural Law. We have 7 of 9. She is in a very fake-looking forest. 7 and Chakotay stumble upon a race of primitive humanoids isolated from technological progress by an energy barrier. This is definitely the last of the most, Trek episodes, I guess would be the way I would call it. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for listening to V'ger Please, A Hateful Voyage to the Delta Quadrant. We'll see you next week.